Yeah, and use against my enemies, yeah. You see, you wanted to save you, and then learn how to raise you. But I forget you're from the wilderness.
Hello everyone, what is up? I am Rob.
I'm Eamon.
Getting beamed up by the aliens. This is Monster Fuzz Podcast. How's everyone doing? Are you having a good day? We are.
Have you been abducted? Why?
There's a lot of aliens stuff going on, Eamon.
A lot of alien stuff. I was watching Investigation Alien, George Knapp.
As one does.
And this particular Colares incident came up, and I was quite taken with it. And I thought I'd throw a few notes together.
You have ties to Brazil?
I do. I was talking to Paola. I was like, is there like a lot of people really interested in UFOs over there? And she was like, yeah, I'm not one of them. Just ignored everything else I said after. I was like, okay. Cool.
They're very interested in the Sega Mega Drive in Brazil.
Yeah, they're into the Mega Drive. Master System is
Jiu-Jitsu.
popular as well. Saturn didn't go down well.
Oh,
Yeah.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, yeah. Which would have just been Jiu-Jitsu at one point, so it was the Japanese
True, over there it's just
influence.
Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
Shooting lads. Mopeds.
Yeah, there's a certain percentage of the population into that as well, yeah.
Christ on a statue loves Jesus.
Christ the Redeemer, they like him. They're big into pão de queijos, cheesy breads.
They
Remember
like
that?
meat.
Carne, yeah.
Like a bit of carne.
Barbecue, picanha.
I was very surprised to learn that Brazil, their cuisine generally doesn't use many spices, really.
No, it's kind of bland
Yeah.
food, but it's like really nice.
Yeah, it's
bland
like
food.
hearty food.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
It's like, I would wager that their food, like in the global perception, is as shitty as England and Ireland. But
I'd say it's
because it's
yeah.
sunny, it gets away with it.
I think it's a bit better, but probably just because it's more of a barbecue centric. So, and you could be, then they do a lot of stuff with beans and stuff. But to your point as well, it's not a very spicy country.
For England do the beans, you know?
Yeah,
Beans
but
and
England just do like the bachelor's baked beans in it.
Sure, it's all
Fucking
all the
irons in
same.
it.
No, but it is a little surprising thing about Brazil.
No, it's fair point.
It was an eye opener for me.
They're with kind of, they're more desserty, like desserts and stuff. What they do is they make, like if you see Brazilian pizza or Brazilian hot dogs, they're excessive to say the least, but it's excessive in things that aren't, like sushi, you could say, is a very delicate kind of pristine sort of, it needs to be fresh fish and blah blah blah. Now that's not a very spicy one either, but Brazilians,
What about wasabi?
yeah, that's true, that's quite spicy. It's the old horseradishy type thing. Now Brazilians, there's a massive Japanese influence on Brazil.
Yeah, there is, yeah.
So their sushi is actually a huge thing over there. But like Brazilian barbecue is probably the best barbecue on earth. The best meat I've ever eaten. We were in like this little, it was almost like a shed restaurant.
Yeah.
And they did barbecued steaks.
Tasty
And
out.
I couldn't believe it. Like I nearly cried. Do you know when you eat a steak so good that like you're consuming the energy in the animal and you just want to thank it. You're like, thank you for dying for me, because this has been a really wonderful experience.
Yeah.
I had another one then after that.
The Wagyu that I got in Japan.
I'd say that was incredible.
that I spent €250 on and got its birth cert. That was the best beef that I've ever had.
And like, is it one of those ones? Because what I found with beef, when it's cooked just right, there is a part of me that thinks it's wrong to eat animals, but I'm not quite there yet.
No.
But I do find that when you put the first taste in it, it's like stress leaves your body. Like there's a thing that just, your shoulders go down. You're like,
I'm not getting that sexual with a bit of meat, but what I will say is,
you don't feel the stress leave your body. You don't ejaculate in your pants when you eat barbecue beef.
Have a Jaffa cake or something, maybe a little bit of that going on.
Little seed.
Yeah.
Little pre-cum. Yeah. Jaffa cake.
No, just melted in my mouth, you know, it was good.
No, I find there's certain foods, and like there's a particular type of sushi, and when I eat it, I literally almost feel stress leaving my body.
Like,
I'm just like, oh, that's so good. It's like a similar thing to, you know, having a whiskey. You drink the whiskey and your body goes, that's the ticket, and it just goes, but it goes, but the little man at the controls goes, you have 45 minutes until I start pushing this back up again.
I get it with a good cup of tea now.
I think maybe we're just wired to certain things. You like a good cup of cha. Now, with that cha that you've made there, does that make you feel very calm?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a fucking babby with his bottle. Me have me tea. You know what I mean?
Little babby sugs.
But anyway, look, never mind that bullshit. We're talking about aliens today. This is Monster Fuzz. We'd like to remind everyone before we get into it, check out our Patreon. It is the best way to support this podcast. You get access to our Discord, exclusive episodes, all of that jazz. Head on over. We do appreciate it very much. Eamon, if you've got any cryptid encounters or alien sightings, UAP sightings, encounters.
Now is the time for alien UAP or just UAP sightings, let's say, because we don't know what they are. They're interdimensional. We don't know what they are. Write us in monsterfuzzpodcast@gmail.com.
That's the one.
And then we will read it out.
We will, yeah.
That's what we do.
We do that at times.
Da-ba-dee-da-dee-ba-dee-da.
So, oi, Brasilia.
No, for me, the purse is no.
Yeah, we're here. Eamon, I don't know sweet fuck all about this. So, you're going to have to give us an intro.
I want to do like my Christian Bale. Hey man, I don't know sweet fuck all is, and you never need to.
So why don't you fill us in here and let us know what the crack is?
I'm going to give you the quick sort of overview before I get into the intro. This is a bizarre story. So there's many things in Brazil regarding UAP abductions. We've done Vias Boas, the fella who rode the alien. Yeah. We have done Modinho and all that sort of stuff. This is Colares. These are all declassified documents. So I got some of this from various sources online, and some of it is from MUFON documents as well. So I tried to kind of piece together a good overview of the whole thing, but it's a bizarre story. If you have a Netflix subscription, as most humans do.
I don't, but yeah.
Do you not?
No.
Word.
Look
at this man, he's all like Disney Plus.
No, none of them.
Fucking Netflix minus.
I have none of them.
You got the...
I sail the seas.
You got the... Yeah.
Fuck all them bitches.
No, that's fair enough, yeah. I do a bit of sea sailing myself.
Netflix are emailing me now crying, going, oh, it's been 40 days, here's an €8 subscription. And I'm like, bitch, it's too late now. You were charging me 16 ass euro or something.
€8 the one like where you fucking like you have to watch ads and all?
Probably. It's like, here's
the... it's just going to go back to cable.
Yeah. Oh, well, it has, you could say.
Never stop.
Like the amount of services. But anyway, look, tell us about
But do you know what
shit.
they didn't have back in the cable days?
No, they didn't.
Sorry, are you allowed to say that last?
You can say whatever you want.
I say what the fuck I want. Anyway, Colares, so I was watching Investigation Alien and this particular one come up. It's great. He does interviews with the people who had these experiences, and there's footage and evidence of them in clinics being examined for burns. So this is one of the rare cases where the aliens actually seem to attack people. You could say, I know they kind of likened it to the Cash Landrum.
Yeah.
But that was more like being around intense radiation.
Was like, radiation.
These are targeted beams. So like...
Say what? Yeah, shit.
This is like Predator 2 stuff when they had lasers. So, 1977, there's numerous UFOs reported in the Brazilian city of Colares Prato. Local residents claimed that scars on their bodies were caused by lights in the sky, and they named these lights Chupa Chupa, which means sucker. It's a local name for a lollipop. I'm assuming that they mean the Chupa Chup.
Yeah.
Chupa Chup. Like.
Yeah. I think they're called Chupa Chupas, are they?
I thought they were Chupa Chups.
Yeah, they could be.
I thought the second one, but that could be anglicized for the white man. Who's to know? So, believing that it would keep the lights away, residents of Colares organised night vigils, they lit fires, they ignited fireworks. Nice. Mayor Jose Idone Favacho Sierro requested help from the Air Force. The help from the Air Force actually turned into the Brazilian Air Force launching Operation Saucer, or Operacao Prato, which is like, that's Portuguese speak.
Oh yeah, I thought someone Portuguese in the room there for a second. Wow.
Desculpa, which means sorry in Portuguese.
Oh wow.
So the mission basically was aimed to investigate the reports of the UFOs and the alleged effects that they were having on the population. This team was led by Captain Urangue Bolivar Sares Nogueira de Holanda Lima.
Of course.
We will be calling him Holanda a lot so that we don't... It's like, was he big nog or little nog?
Some name.
So he was sent to Colares and he did all this. It's a wild story, man. It's a really interesting one. the Brazilians don't disappoint when it comes to the UAPs.
No,
you have little Modinho's the man.
The mud person.
Well, he's the alien, but he's cool.
So let's look into evidence of these outlandish attacks. These Colares UFO sightings actually did last for several months. There was a most intense period of activity which occurred from October to November 1977. However, reports of UFO activity in the region began earlier in the year and persisted into 1978. This makes the overall duration of sightings approximately 4 to 6 months. To add to the validity of the accounts, there is video footage of people being treated in clinics in Colares. Medical professionals who treated the victims noted several recurring patterns, and these patterns were as follows. Number 1, the burns often appeared to be superficial, as if they were caused by intense light rather than direct heat. And that blood samples from some patients showed unexplained abnormalities, including reduced red blood cell counts consistent with blood loss or radiation exposure. And victims displayed signs of shock and stress, including trembling and elevated heart rates.
So part of that was like
happens to the best of us.
We all get the shit scared out of us from time to time, but it was more so it was a traumatic event because they couldn't. While they could describe what had happened to him, they had no historical instance of this. Like if you fall down the stairs, even though you may have never fallen down the stairs, it makes sense.
Yeah.
If the stairs falls down on you, that's a bit more jarring.
It's like the Chernobyl thing.
Yeah.
All them lads
they've never seen it before.
All them lads that were hit with radiation poison didn't know what the fuck was going on.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? So Dr. Walid Chesim Carvalho, he was a physician who worked in the region during these events. He later stated that the injuries she treated rather, I just assumed her gender.
It's just
forgive me, Jesus.
Trans agenda.
Forgive me, Jesus.
I have forgiven you.
In an interview, she said they were unlike anything she had seen, but in an interview she recalled treating over 30 patients with similar symptoms, observing burn marks that did not correspond to any conventional injury pattern and feeling perplexed by the psychological trauma experienced by her patients.
So if you watch the second episode of Investigation Alien, there's images where, and it's video footage as well, where they're actually pinching some of the skin. Most of the images, like maybe teenagers or kids, but you can see the burn marks on them. There's one where there's a woman and they're kind of like just moving the skin around where the burn mark is. It's like a small kind of a mark. She later on then they visit her as she's an older woman now, maybe in her 60s, and she sort of describes what she's seen. It's in the realm of what we have 4 separate stories at the end of this episode to kind of give you a bit of more idea around that. But it's a mad thing, like it's documented, well documented, and no different to Virginia, which again was a very well documented case with Modinho and all the boys, and remember the aliens going to the hospital and all the military. This is the same kind of level, and actually the more you look into it, there's even more stuff in Brazil. I'm starting to suspect that there may be some sort of link between Brazil and the US in terms of they're relatively close together, and maybe they allow a lot of access to the Americans when this stuff is going on. And you'd wonder how long it's been under development. Is it domestic UAP to America that are like maneuvering around Brazil and trying different things?
America, if you see a world map of all the military bases America has around the world, like be like, it's mad, you know. In countries you wouldn't even think, you're like, all right, okay, like they're pretty much all over the gaff.
All your base belong to us.
Yeah, so
as the Americans say.
No, they are, and I actually seen, funny enough, that we're talking about kind of unexplained burns and stuff. I seen a lad that shot himself in the face with a proton ray or something like that online.
Proton cannon,
and like it went straight through his skull. He survived, and like it's invisible, so it's like radiation. I think it's a proton ray, something like that.
Like the stuff they use at CERN, but
I think so. But it burned a hole through his brain.
Jesus,
he survived, and apparently he had no like bad effects really.
Has it improved his?
He lost his hearing in one ear, and that side of his face was kind of paralyzed and never aged. But he was able to live a normal life.
So if the beauty industry could sort of
shoot
commercialize
girls
in the head with proton cannons and stop the aging process.
So, do you want to take off this little bit?
I will. So,
Prato?
Talking about Operacao Prato, Operation Saucer, aptly named because they were flying saucers. So, Operacao Prato is one of the most important episodes in the history of world ufology. Ladies and gentlemen, the history of world ufology. That's all of the things we know about world ufology.
Speaking the Portuguese.
But Eamon, your wife. So, more than a quarter of a century later, these files are still classified. The operation is still off limits to the public. However, many of the secrets are either being told by some of the older population now who would have been alive at the time, or have been disclosed to Brazilian ufologists through kind of whistleblowers and things like that. If you look again at the TV show, there's a very interesting part in it that we don't have in this, where there is a boatman, and he brings out some American troops, or he tells the story rather in 1977 of bringing out American troops and some Brazilian army as well. They even gave him a gun. No training, because they didn't know what. Now that maybe you could argue is a Brazilian thing to do, average Brazilian experience. But he was actually sailing out, following these lights, and these were like crazy moving lights. They get into a lot of stuff about everything in nature moves in a curve, whereas these are all angles, and they touch a bit on underwater bases and all the rest of it. But very interesting stuff. So this operation, as we said, it was led, I'm not going to say his whole name, it was led by Captain de Hollanda Lima. He's an experienced Air Force officer. So he was tasked with leading a team of military personnel to investigate the events. The operation included approximately 30 military personnel. This would have been intelligence officers, photographers, and medical staff. And as we said, they also probably would have linked in a bit with the public. You had this fella who was driving the boat for them, bringing them out to sea. He was just a regular fisherman as well. So there was elements of that going. I argue, like, either this guy is maybe bullshitting about that, or the other argument will be because they're doing stuff like that, there's no tie from that person to military. So maybe it's a way of maybe keeping a bit more under wraps at the time. The investigation officially lasted about 2 months. However, there's a lot of reports that informally suggest that surveillance and documentation would have continued for several weeks afterwards, and possibly would have never stopped. And there was a constant small kind of setup of people monitoring UAP events in Brazil. So the team interviewed hundreds of residents. They gathered detailed descriptions of UFO sightings and encounters. Over 500 photographs of alleged UFOs were taken during the investigation. So Rob, you can see at the start of the document there's one kind of ball of light. Now you could look, that looks like anything, to be fair, but there's this again 1977 cameras as well, so loads and loads of stuff around here. There's 16 hours of video footage, and they capture luminous objects performing erratic maneuvers. So again, we're seeing a lot of that nowadays as well, especially in the midst of the congressional UAP hearings. So while much of the material from Operation Saucer remains classified, there has been information that's been released or that has leaked since 1977. Yeah,
sometimes like lately I've seen, like, it's funny how sometimes UFO sightings are just debunked. There was one I seen, looked actually really good. I don't know where it was taken, but ultimately what it ended up being was like they were in the bottom of a valley, and like way off on like a high up mountain was like a house, and that was what people thought was a UAP because they couldn't see the mountain in the dark.
Okay, and so the lights like, just were
whatever way this house, but whatever way this house looked like, it was quite a big. It might have even been a house. It might have been some kind of building. It just looked weird in the sky, and then people were illustrating that. Yeah, sometimes even things like that can really fuck up with people's things. Like, this is obviously way more than that, but it's just food for thought. I think with UAPs,
absolutely, to be discerning in what you think is a green man in the sky.
So how do we know about all this if it was all secret and classified? Well, in 1997, long after he had retired as a lieutenant colonel, Hollanda decided he was no longer obligated to remain silent about Operacao Prato and publicly discussed it. He gave several interviews, including one with fellow researcher Cynthia Luce. He said many people had been burned by UFOs during the UFO wave, both on the Colares Island side of Marajo Bay and on Marajo Island. Of the dozens of documents that were leaked, only a few mention any burns or injuries, and there is no mention of anyone dying. Yet we do know that the team photographed burn victims, although how many is not known. A doctor once told Belém researcher Daniel Rebiso Guis that a colonel had shown him many photos of people who had been burned, and in 1993 Daniel interviewed one victim, Manuel Emidio Campo de Oliveira, who said investigators took photographs of a burn on the top of his left thigh. Daniel, who is a biologist, has done more research on the Colares flap than anyone else and has published a book about it, Vampiros Extraterrestres na Amazonia.
There you go.
What about that, huh?
That's, so the extraterrestrial vampires of the Amazon.
Now what we do know is that, and we talked about it on Mini-Fuzz a couple of weeks ago, civilizations in the Amazon were way more advanced than what we previously thought. As recently as up until the 80s and 90s, we didn't know this, even the 00s. So, one can only logically assume that they were assisted by aliens in building this advanced civilization in the jungle.
One can surmise.
Yeah, I mean, possible. It makes sense, really, doesn't it?
It makes perfect sense. It makes the most sense of... It makes more sense than a house with the lights on at the top of a mountain.
I think the Amazon's advanced civilizations, it was aliens.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Call Graham Hancock.
Someone like Graham Hancock, he's been called. He knows already.
Yeah.
The Amazon was actually full of sea people, and they came from the sands of Arabia, and it was teppy, and how would you even make a slice like this in a piece of caramel? I mean, concrete. It's not feasible.
Some dude.
Yeah, he's one of those lads that get really fucking shirty with you as well. If he heard me say, "You fuck you," what do you know? What do you know? You goon.
You get pissy.
You goon.
You are a goon, though. To be fair,
well, I am a goon.
You won't get pissy,
but you shouldn't call me a goon to my face.
No, he wouldn't call you a goon. He'd call you a buffoon.
You big imbecile. You big galoot. You greedy galoot.
Yeah. He'd be right in calling you a galoot.
He'd be saying your intellect pales in comparison to mine. Yeah. And then I'd take one deep breath and I go, it probably does, Mr. Hancock. But that being said,
your brain is vast.
I'd say, Mr. Hancock, you're making a lot of outlandish claims.
Our listeners know how vast your brain is.
Graham Hancock, he studied a mansion in 1998 where there was reports of
your brain,
zombies.
Your brain has more computing power than all of the Sega Mega Drives in Brazil.
That might actually be true. That my brain runs on VTech software. When you turn on my brain, when I wake up in the morning, I just hear, what sound does a cow make? And I'm delighted then, sure, and I have a little smile on my face. I go off to me little job, then back in the groceries, and sure, I'm happy enough.
We've got stories, Em.
We do hear some true stories of the attacks.
True stories of attacks.
During the peak of the Colares incident, hundreds of residents from Colares and the surrounding areas reported seeing unidentified flying objects over a period of 7 months. While precise numbers vary depending on the source, it's estimated that over 300 people witnessed UFO activity during this time, many of whom gave detailed testimonies to local authorities, journalists, and the Brazilian Air Force team who conducted Operation Saucer. So the next few stories we have they're all taken from some MUFON files.
Yep.
Again, 4 different stories to just give you a gist of what people would have been seeing there.
Mm-hmm.
So during the peak of I read that bit. So Santia Antonia de Tau, Raimunda Francisco das Chagas. So I'm assuming Santa Antonia is the place. Yep. Raimunda is the person. They're 36. They're returning from Santo Antonio de Tau. His home is on the way. So he's on the way back home, and he is about 6 kilometers from the highway. Mm-hmm. He's walking on foot, smoking, as he described, absent-mindedly.
As one does.
That's the way I am when I wake up in the morning. My VTech brain kicks in.
Are you still on the fags?
What sound does a cat make? I smoke 1 cigarette a day, and I think to myself, a cigarette never killed anyone. I blow the smoke away from my, and it's fine. Everything's fine.
I nearly had I almost had a moment of weakness with a couple of weeks back.
You're out having a few juices,
I wouldn't fucking with a cigar.
Cigars, grand.
No, cigars are the big.
They're worse for
once
you.
You once you touch a cigar, you're fucked. That's the.
I think cigars. It's hard to get addicted to cigars because they're so.
No, it's the gateway on. You get that taste for the tobacco. You're smoking.
But see, with the cigar, it's only in the mouth.
Fidel Castro.
It's when you.
I put that shit in my lungs.
It's when you breathe in.
No, I'm telling you, you're getting that nicotine buzz, man. There's nicotine about 20 fags.
There's a good nicotine buzz off the cigars.
Yeah, no, I was looking at it and it was in the ashtray in front of me, and I was like,
did you? And it was it residual? My precious that's me precious but did you get like residual, because you used to smoke a ton of fags? Did you get residual, like you were like, I remember the old ways?
Yeah, no, I was close now. I was very close. I was
when you're on your deathbed, you're not going to be like, I am so happy about all of these fags I didn't smoke.
It was all it would have been is a whimsical sentence, and I would have had a fag. Like, I was that close. I was literally.
How much juices had you had at that point?
A couple. Like, I had probably 3 or 4 pints in an hour, something like that, and I was
3 or 4 pints in an hour.
3 an hour and a half, something like that. Yeah, we were like kind of. I wouldn't say we were speed drinking a bit because we got down there kind of late.
Right.
And I had a shot as well or something. But I was looking at it going like, it was just a cigar. Like, cigars are good. And I was going, tasty.
Yeah, so
tasty
you gotta, seasoned drinkers like myself know how to time out my drink.
Like, I could have one of them.
To be fair.
No, I can't.
But what probably would have happened is,
I can't.
You were just drunk. You wouldn't have just like.
No, I wouldn't have if I was sober.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But if I was drunk, I would have.
Yeah, but you don't really drink too much, so you're probably safe. I'm like the devil on your show. I'm like, smoke a cigarette.
No, if I
do you think you'd be right back on it proper if you smoked a bit?
Like, the only, like, I apply like NA mentality to smoking, like that I'm an addict and I can't have a fag.
Okay.
Like, if I have one fag, I'm fucked.
Yeah.
I'm fucked. I know that about myself.
It is funny. Yeah, like,
myself.
I'm able to have 1 cigarette a day, and it just doesn't really get worse than that. If I get mad stressed out, I can start smoking a lot, but then as soon as I'm not stressed, it'll just go back. And I don't know why it's like that.
No,
it's just whatever way I'm set up.
My brain is like, oh, that's good. Have loads of that all the time.
I have, like, for me, it's more habitual. Like, even with drinking, it's like, I don't want to drink during the day. I don't like it. But at night, alone for like an hour, I'm like, yeah, this is good.
No, it's dangerous for me because I'll just go, I can have it all the time.
When can we stop worrying about the future and just, like,
I'll probably pick up
when we're like 60 or 70, when we're both technical OAPs, can we both just be like, come around to my house, drink cans and smoke fags?
No, yeah, for sure, man.
That'd be class,
If I was like, if I got like a terminal illness or I got really like I get old, I'd probably like ask time to get back on the wagon, have a few fags, have the crack,
a few drinks.
Why not?
A few fags. You've all them old whiskies up there.
I do as well, yeah.
Start drinking Game of Thrones whiskey in 40 years and all.
I have a go to.
Not long now.
That nice bottle of scotch we got in Scotland, they've got there too.
Yeah, mine didn't last the week. I'm living now, man. I'm living for today. So anyway, this lad's smoking his cap off, walking home anyway. And he saw a very bright yellowish light coming down in his direction. He said it was a bit like a car's headlight. He ran, leaving the path, and he hid in the bushes. Now, this is some similar stuff we see in more UAPs with the planes, where they mirror their movements.
Oh, yeah.
And they chase them almost. So in this situation, he was actually chased by the light, and he came to a grove of palm trees, which was probably very exotic.
Oh, lovely.
And he hid there and he stayed immobile. Now, he calls it the apparatus, which I don't know the Portuguese for, but he said it was searching for him and it was emitting rays of blue light in various directions.
Oh.
He didn't see the shape of the object because he was too frightened. He was saying things like, oi, the purses, no. So he did not hear any noise from the object as it moved. He heard a hissing sound that reminded him of an irrigation pump. So there you go. So was it emitting some sort of... Because you know they say about these things, there's no visual combustion that they can see, and they seem to be just able to move. So is it some sort of air that's being pumped out of the higher? Who's to know? The object moved lower in the direction of the village, initially proceeding from east and then to west. He lost everything he'd been carrying. and he felt a slight numbness that lasted for several days afterwards.
Shouts out.
So there you go.
So we've got one from Santo Antonio, or in Santo Antonio do Ubuntuba, Rio Bituba. We don't know which is Rio Bituba is another spot. His name is Miguel Arcangelo Suarez. He's 32. He's literate, would you believe?
There's a lot of that in this, to be fair.
Marker.
So you got to remember, 1977 Brazil is like 1950s or 40s Ireland.
Yeah.
So there's an element of
Sega Mega Drive.
There's a Sega Mega Drive's a long way off at this stage. So for anyone who doesn't know what we're laughing at, there's a tax thing in Brazil where any electronics that are imported in are paid at a higher rate. So a PlayStation 4, even though everything in Brazil is cheap, a PlayStation 4 or 5 is way more expensive to buy in Brazil than to buy here. So I believe it was somewhere in the region of €700 when it would have been €500 here about the time I was in Brazil.
Yeah, and €700 is like a month's wage or more.
Exactly. And to give you, so for some people working in Brazil, they might make 300 reais a week and divide a real by 5 to get €1. So.
Yeah, I think that like living wage in Brazil is like €200 a week or something, right? Like the average wage or something like that. Or,
yeah, if they were getting the dole in Brazil, like you could live very comfortably on Brazil if you made about $2,000 a month.
I'd say you live more than very comfortably in Brazil.
You wouldn't be living like a king, but you'd be grand, you know? So like if, what is it? So that would be 10,000 reais a month. But again, I think the thing about Brazil is it's not like Dublin, where even to live in a room in a rough neighborhood is still going to cost you a ton of money. There's places in Brazil where you could get amazingly cheap rent, but obviously you're far away from the city. It's a really bizarre place because, like, let's say in urban areas like we have in Ireland, you can be to areas that are a bit more run down, but ultimately they're still the urban area and there's not much distance. Whereas in Brazil, like you have to remember, man, it's so vast.
Oh yeah, it's not
like just Sao Paulo is about 6 times the size of Ireland.
Yeah, it's not.
So it's a really different, and then you have the really like sort of modernized parts, and then the really sort of antiquated parts. I suppose it's a bizarre place. It's a lovely place. But yeah, it is a strange old place.
Moral of the story, like Sega Mega Drives are on fleek over there.
Sorry, yeah. So the moral of the story is because the current gen is so expensive, a lot of people are still playing PlayStation 2.
Well, don't blame them.
They do a lot of hacks and stuff in Brazil as well. Yeah. So it's
releasing new games on the Sega now.
Sega Sonic 12.
So he's literate. He's a farm worker. He lives in a locality known as Vila Nova, and was getting ready to go to the village of Vigia when he heard his neighbour shouting, "There it goes, there it goes." What was that? It's an alien.
Which would have been "Como vai?" That's how do you go? How do you go?
He left his house using the back door in time to see a reddish yellow light moving slowly about 60 metres high. It was going southeast northwest, emitting a ray of blue light. He was frightened. He yelled to his wife to stay in the house. He went back outside the house and felt as if he had had an electric shock from a ray of light, like a charge of static electricity. He felt partially paralysed, a numbness which spread from his feet to his head. It's like he's having a panic attack.
Which is understandable.
Arsehole puckers. All that. Accompanied by chills and growing heat. For some minutes, he was hoarse and felt a pain in the back of his neck, Eamon.
Yeah. We have another one. Campo Cerrado, Santo Antonio de Taua. So same place as the first story. Manuel Matos da Souza. So he's 38. Again, literate.
Fair play.
He's a farm worker. He is a resident of Colonia Campo Cerrado. So he saw a light hovering about 20 meters above the ground over the trees, blue with 3 vertical black stripes in the center, round. He says like a farinha oven. So there you go. It lit up everything around it. The witness pointed his gun at it, and he was hit by a ray of red light, which felt like electricity and paralyzed him.
You sure now he wasn't playing one of them duck hunt NES guns?
Nah, sure, they wouldn't have been out in 1970. He couldn't. Sorry, they wouldn't have been. No, that's actually real. I didn't realize that. As I was saying that. No, but the only computers they had in Brazil then was the Abacus in 1977.
Really?
They used to play Abacus All Stars, where they would fight the Abacus little wooden balls against each other.
So indigenous Brazilian is like it's not Aztec or Incan, right? It's Amazonian.
Amazonian.
So they're like
actually not even Amazonian. They're just tribal people. So like the Amazon would have been, because the Amazon's vast, you would have had Amazonians there, but you also would have just had regular tribes in the sort of body of Brazil as well.
What, all them Columbus? Vasco da Gama?
It was the Portuguese that came
Magellan,
over there.
Maybe. One of them lads.
I don't think Magellan found it. I don't know who found it, but
Vasco da Gama probably was it? He fucked everyone up.
Cervantes from Soul Calibur, I think, was there. But basically, and so what happened was they brought a lot of sickness with them. Paula told a story about Come to Brazil and I'll show you my village. White jazz. But yeah, so she said that the indigenous people, this is like lore more so, but that they didn't have a word for disease then. And it was only when the white man came coughing and spluttering off the old ships, all the boys were like, I don't feel you so good. So and then obviously like every other place that was colonized, you know, they brought Christ with them and all the rest of it. Now the Brazilians took to Christ.
Yeah,
Brazilians are massively Catholic.
Don't blame them.
They have the Brazilians have all the good bits of Catholicism with none of the weird shit that we have. All the shame and the you had a child outside of wedlock.
Yeah, they don't
fold
have
sheets.
that, do they?
Yeah, they don't have that same shame that we do. But some of them are extremely religious. Like they be going to mass the whole time. I don't know if they're conservative. I don't know if they necessarily practice what they preach. Right. Not in a bad way, but like certainly
heretics.
Yeah, sexy heretics. I think they're a lot more body positive than, but they also.
That's not Catholic.
Exactly. They also have the second per capita. They have the most plastic surgeries outside of America. You know,
it's funny. A lot of like it's the same in Iran. Like the women.
Do they have a look away in Iran?
Yeah, and
you
it's
just
a
can't
shame.
see it because they're wearing the old yoke.
It's a shame because they're like, it's the women. They get nose jobs. Apparently, it's like fucking.
Really?
Like, yeah, it's like an epidemic over there. Every motherfucker's getting a nose job, and like it's a shame because they're such fucking beautiful women. Like Iranian women are fucking gorgeous. Motherfuckers out here getting nose jobs left, right, and center.
I didn't think that like you would be allowed to do that in Iran. I thought.
Yeah. No, it's halal.
That's halal. I thought like that. You know, I thought like
it's kosher.
Because you're not allowed to wear a t-shirt.
Yeah, no. Iran's a bit more chill.
Well, Iran didn't.
The Ayatollah of rock and roller.
Didn't Iran before?
See, Chris Jericho actually has a body on him like my granny nowadays. Don't
yeah, Chris Jericho looks like a melted candle.
What's going on with him? He's turned into the very thing.
Old now.
He's turned into the very thing he hated and all when he was coming up. One of them
was he giving out about?
One of them old legends that won't leave to get out of the octagon, won't let the other lads, or the octagon, the ring, won't let the lads shine. You know,
Chris Jericho do very well in the octagon. Oh my God, lion assault off the top rope.
He's not letting him shine. He's the he used to give out about Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan and all them lads, and now he's just the same.
Sooner or later, we become what we hate
with the body of me granny.
Sooner or later, no, your granny's probably got a more athletic body. To be fair, he's actually full of muscle underneath it all.
Of rock and roller.
The Ayatollah of rock and roller.
One of my favorites.
He's the learning tree.
He is one of my favorites.
Chris Jericho was great.
He was, yeah.
He's great. Chris Jericho is great.
Used to get me brother in the walls of Jericho all the time.
Yeah, I always thought that like if you had some of the walls of Jericho and then you just like jump down to your arse, you'd kill them.
Yeah, you probably
would. Probably would. Yeah, it was a great move.
You probably would though. Spine buster in a different way. So we're back to Brazil. We're talking about a high school student, Manuel do Espírito Santo. I think that's everyone's name in this.
Yeah, I think they're all just called.
They're all Santo or Antonio.
Santos and Silva.
Like literally, like so.
Lima.
His name is Espírito Santo from Santo Antonio.
Tatawa, that's the first town. So that's the third one from Santo Antonio.
And his name
you
is
calling
Santo.
Me or the church? Calling the church?
So he was in front of his house with some friends, Julio, Paulo, Deca, and Carlito. Classic.
Carlito spitting apples at people.
When he saw a yellow light moving east-west, slowing in speed and stopping about 20 meters from the group, he said he could see 2 crew members inside who appeared to be human. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so there's a link to document there on the MUFON website.
So there was a man and a woman. He said the man was on the left side and the woman on the right side of this apparatus. They both had glasses on that were a different shape and communication gear, maybe earphones. The one on the left more attentively was, I don't know.
Yeah, so because it's translated, there's like stuff with the question marks there.
Yeah, okay. So basically, long story short, they directed a ray of red light toward the group. They were hit directly, and it felt like an electric shock from the feet to the head. Their eyes were all puckered. Then they felt paralysed, arms and legs immobilised, and they were semi-conscious. The object gradually began to move away, gaining altitude and speed. Manuel was able to move again, feeling numb for some minutes. To describe the object from a distance, it seemed like a reddish-yellow star. It turned more yellow as it came closer. He observed a bluish light in the front top part. It had the shape of a barrel within a tin tube. That's like cigar shape almost, is that what it is? Or more slender horizontal, and another more slender horizontal one. Okay. That emitted a ray of blue light. The apparent size was 1.2 to 1.4 meters. Right, so that's quite small.
And so they must have been really... So a tiny man and a woman, because 1.4 meters is like...
Yeah.
What, up to about here on me or something like?
Yeah, bullshit. And gave an appearance of being transparent in the bluish part with a division between the 2 crew members. Unless now, like, the size was at that distance, it appeared 1 meters. You know what I mean? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, does that, do you know?
I'm not sure. Well, this fella, I mean, even just saying that he saw... Look, there's obviously something going on in Colares. Doesn't mean that every story we get from it is definitely true, but this is definitely an interesting one. Yeah,
he says that, it moved around kind of wavy and it reached a certain altitude and then it was abruptly varying its speed.
Yeah, so again, erratic movements, probably not in those curves, but like, you know, very right angles, sort of, or angled movements.
So what could it have been, Eamon? What could it have been? Tell me now. What could it
have been? It was all
Sentient
just a dream.
Sega Mega Drive.
All just a dream. Yeah.
I used to read Word Up magazine.
Used to read which?
Line of Biggie song. It was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine.
I was kind of referencing Dallas when it was all a dream after JR got shot. I was talking about that a lot on Saturday with someone.
Oh yeah.
So a prominent theory is that the Colares incidents were the result of classified military weapons testing, possibly involving advanced laser or energy technologies. So you could say that perhaps a lot of the stuff that's maybe used in the movement of the UAPs was used as aggressive weapons here, and then they sort of jigged it so actually we can use this as propulsion rather than... which might be why you don't have any signs of combustion when you're looking at these things. Possibly.
Maybe.
The injuries reported, such as burns and puncture marks, are reminiscent of effects caused by direct energy weapons, which were actually being researched globally during the Cold War. The events occurred during the late 1970s, which was a time when the likes of the US and the USSR were experimenting with advanced lasers, advanced weapons, including lasers and microwave systems. Colares is a sparsely populated area, making it a plausible testing ground for covert experiments. The Brazilian military's swift intervention and subsequent classification of many documents raised suspicions that the government was aware of or complicit in such experiments. So as I said earlier, that might kind of link you into the idea that the Americans and the Brazilians, maybe, you know, they give Brazil a few kickbacks, or Brazil can be quite politically corrupt.
Yeah.
Potentially the right lads getting paid off to allow stuff like this to happen.
They've used fucking melt rays on half of the Amazon, so
this is it, you know. Use methane. The most widely disclosed theory is that the Colares UFOs were evidence of alien activity. Obviously, this is the fun theory. Residents and military personnel consistently described objects performing maneuvers far beyond the capabilities of known human technology, such as instantaneous direction changes. We've covered these a lot on the show recently. And disappearing, reappearing in the sky. Have you seen the jellyfish UAP?
Yeah.
The one that seems to like cloak.
Yeah.
That's bizarre
yeah.
looking. So anyway, that's a current example of something disappearing in the sky. Witnesses reported that the UFOs appeared to intelligently target individuals with beams of light, as we've heard in our stories, as if conducting experiments or monitoring human reactions. So that's a possibility. And then finally, some conspiracy theorists believe that the Brazilian government worked with foreign powers such as the US, but possibly Russia or other countries, to cover up these events. The US government's alleged interest in UFO phenomena, as seen in documents like the Pentagon's Project Blue Book, adds weight to this theory. Now, here's where it gets a little bit strange, and we'll leave you on this tonight, folks. Captain Hollanda's 1997 interview, where he revealed explosive details about Operation Saucer, Operacao Prato, it was followed by a mysterious death, which was officially ruled a YouTube algorithm.
Fucking YouTube algorithm.
Algorithm. So this has fueled speculation that he was made an example of, because he was maybe either the YouTube algorithm was exactly what happened and he was like, I'm fed up with this now and I'm going to tell my truth before I pass on, or there was some sort of a government hijinks.
There could have been it could have been a thing even okay, let's look at it fairly and from every angle. He could have just been like, you know what, I'm a bit mad. Let me tell a lot of lies.
Yeah.
And during the throes of insania, as Peter Andre once called it, he was like, it's time for YouTube algorithm.
Yeah.
You know.
Possibly.
But that, I don't think that's what happened to him.
I think it's strange that someone would actually be involved in this. And we have people who say they've been burned. We have video evidence of crazy things happening.
I don't think Brazilian people YouTube algorithm either. I think they're too happy. I don't think anyone.
They are much more likely to not YouTube algorithm, to be fair. Yeah, I think you're probably right about that.
I don't think there's
See, they lead tough lives. A lot of Brazilians lead tough lives, and weirdly enough, people who have harder lives a lot of times tend to...
Well, they're just focused on survival, aren't they?
So maybe that's what we should all be doing. Just focus
Should we? Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Sometimes you're kind of like, yeah.
Sometimes you're just eating ice cream. You go, fuck's sake, I just want to YouTube algorithm.
Or I just want to eat ice cream all the time with no consequences. Or smoke fags all the time.
Class.
With no consequences.
Sometimes I just eat ice cream when I'm smoking fags.
Like, I personally think that there's absolutely nothing wrong with someone that goes, I'm here once, I'm going to eat ice cream all the time.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, we're like...
It's all relative, right? You know what I mean?
No one's going to fucking care either. Like, lads, I hate to break this to you. Your legacy.
Yeah. It's like Mike Tyson in that clip where he's talking to the 13-year-old on.
It doesn't matter because when we're gone, we're all just gone.
With dust. And it's like, all right, Mike, you've given the poor child an existential crisis. But he's right, though. He's like, what is legacy? Legacy's garbage. Who cares about legacy? It's going to be what, my grandkids, maybe? And other than that, no one's going to care about anything that I did.
And people barely care about anything anymore. Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong, boxing legends, same as anyone, musicians, sports stars, whatever it is. But like, also just live your life, like.
But like, they'll get mentioned. But like, okay,
who cares?
I'll give you good examples, like classical music, right? There's probably like 12 to 15 to 20 names that you could rattle off that are remembered. Think about like the hundreds and thousands of like semi-decent musicians back then that no one remembers at all. That probably played live shows, probably had the support, probably had like fandom in that they were able to play gigs and make money. No one remembers their asses. And like even more recently, go back to the 70s. Think about how many rock bands like that people don't remember when they just remember Led Zeppelin or they just remember Pink Floyd or
yeah. I do think that there's a weird wiring in humans that sort of forces you to do stuff. I feel like the people who really are these high achievers, I feel like they don't really have a choice in it. Like, they'd be saying it's discipline. I get up and I fucking put the ice bucket on. So, like, most people don't do that because it's shite. Like,
well, some lads are groomed into it. Like, Mike Tyson was basically groomed into it.
Into boxing. Yeah, absolutely. And it was the first thing I think he realised he was really good at something rather than just being, you know, a lad who was tough.
A lot of musicians, like, a lot of people won't like to admit it because people like to hang on to the idea of, like, I just started a band in my garage with a fucking Squier Stratocaster, and next thing I was headlining fucking Nebworth or something. But most of the time, these motherfuckers are trained in music. Like, they know how they know how to write a song. They know all the scales. They know the structure. They know the art of writing a song. It's not like I picked up my guitar and I played a couple of power chords. That's called punk music, basically. Yeah. But most of the time, especially nowadays, like most of these little young motherfuckers, you know, like that you listen to, you hear and they're doing their electronic music and all that. These motherfuckers have been going to like multiple instrument classes probably their whole life. Not to say that it can't happen.
No.
But a lot of the time, the people that do exceed, they're groomed into it from a young age and set up well to do that. And obviously, of course, there are outliers, you know, but you know. Like,
there's reasons that like Justin Timberlake, Christina Aguilera and Britney Spears were all in the Disney Mickey Mouse Club together and all that sort of shit. Like, it's not that there's an element of nepotism, I would imagine, and right place, right time and all the rest of it.
Grooming and mental parents. A lot of it is like psychotic.
I would sometimes wonder, like, if you're forcing your kid into stuff like that, like
psychotic.
You see, I don't know what these parents' deal is, but my thing would be like, I would just want my kid to be happy and to be financially okay.
They're unwell, but they're unwell a lot.
Yeah,
they're projecting their wants onto the child, or their perceived inadequacies,
or what
themselves.
They want, like using the child to monetize their own situation.
Yeah, that's part of it too. Yeah, some of them is like, it's an ego thing where it's like, my child is the best, so they transfer their ego onto their child. There's a lot of it. It's all messy. But anyway, let's get back to aliens. The fuck, sighting or shiting?
Yeah, this one's a sighting for me. This one's a sighting.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. I think this is another one where I do lean on sighting for sure.
It's to have 300 people, classified documents, doctors, people who've said that this has happened. Yeah, I mean, to me, I wouldn't, if I had to gamble on it, I would be thinking it's not actually aliens, it's probably government experimentation.
What did the Barns look like?
It was hard to know because it was like black and white pictures, so you didn't see the color. But it looked like mild burns. Okay. It didn't look excessive.
Mad, like,
they weren't crazy.
It wasn't like Freddy Krueger or nothing.
No, it wasn't like Nightmare.
Yeah,
Nightmare in wherever. Caralho. Caralho means fuck. Yeah, I don't know. It's. See, the other thing as well is there wasn't a lot of stuff about people having like these really bad issues with possible cancers or cell mutations down the line. So these things seem to just sort of like put you in a stasis for a second, give you a shock, and then you kind of come to. Whereas with Cash Landrum, even though they're not there for very long, there's serious issues with the two of them after that. It's
one of them things, isn't it, where it's a trope of ours at this stage where, you said the old line of, if one of them is real, then, if one of these accounts is real, then it opens a can of worms, it opens Pandora's box. Yeah. But with all this UFO shit that we're seeing lately, all this UAP shit, you're kind of like, you're getting to a point now where it feels like at the very least they're at least going to normalize the fact that UAPs exist.
Do you think that, and they kind of have to a certain extent as well, do you think that like the fact that we say created the atomic bomb, we've created nuclear energy, could we use that energy source with science to make these crafts do things like that?
I mean, you would think so, right? Because like they've got nuclear submarines, right? And like nuclear submarines are like super advantageous over diesel submarines. Because diesel submarines are loud, noisy, and all that bullshit. And then when nuclear submarines came along, they were super silent.
So if it is powered atomically in some way, right? You would imagine, no different to the likes of Chernobyl, that a short amount of time caught in that radius would cause some serious, and that seems to be what we're seeing. So if I was a gambling man, I would be going, okay, the atomic bomb gets dropped in the 40s, okay? We sort of crack the code of splitting the atom. that provides us with an energy source that sort of, I don't want to say is mass produced, but we use it on a commercial level to power electricity and blah, blah, blah. Surely to God, if we can find a way, and it would also, if that radiation from this atomic powered UAP is that strong, it would make sense that we wouldn't put people in it, that we would, because they would die of the radiation, never mind the G-force. And so in that case, then that would sort of go some of the way to explaining what we're seeing here.
Yeah, well, like planes and fighter jets kind of came around via the same logic. So like you had wartime scientists trying to develop the fastest bombs, the fastest rockets with like the best fuel and propulsion systems, and that's what led to modern day jets and planes. And then that opened up travel in the skies, right? So then with nuclear power, it opened up other things too, like the nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
So now, as far as I'm aware, I'm not like by any means an expert on anything, but I'm definitely not an expert on this stuff where like nuclear bombs aren't powered by nuclear energy to get to where they're going. I'm fairly sure they're powered by like traditional propelled ICBM shit is usually, I think, jet fuel, that kind of thing. I think. No, I might be wrong.
This is the actual...
The propulsion method.
Yeah.
So like, the big questions with that is like, if they had a nuclear method of moving a plane or an airborne object, why wouldn't they upscale it everywhere? And one of the big things could potentially be safety. One would be like, if it crashed, you've got a mini nuclear problem.
Yeah, and maybe that might be a reason that it's not true.
No, I actually think it might be a reason for why it is true, because then that would explain why, like, if there is any crashes of these things, why there's big cover-ups. Like, because, like, if you think, like, imagine you had, like, a mad radiation leak from a crash of one of these things, and then you had a bunch of people showing up going, oh, this is a UFO, like, we have to see the crack, and it's like, you need to get your ass out of here, because these are all going to fucking melt from the inside out.
Yeah.
So, like, that, like, my only thing with that is, like, and we don't have the capability to know this, and there's probably people listening that might know, and they might be able to say, no, you can or you can't shrink down nuclear tech to where it operates in such a small aircraft. But that said, I mean, nuclear submarines aren't exactly fucking massive. Like, they're big, of course, they're crewed, like there's a bunch of people living on them. But, like, you know, if you put one of them in the sky, it's a fucking UAP. Do you know what I mean? So, like,
yeah, it's just obviously we don't know the engineering of
no,
it, but as a power source,
yeah,
that might explain a lot in terms of why people have these reactions to being around these things. Why a lot of people in the US have been given money because of their involvement with UAP stuff, because they've had sicknesses later. That's in that Imminent book by Elizondo. So yeah, I don't know. It's like, the more we're seeing of UAPs, the more you're going, yeah, like this. And it doesn't mean that we're saying aliens are real or this or that, because it might just be, governments are doing wild shit. But that's real, like, that's happening.
Yeah, if it's some kind of nuclear powered ball, it would also explain why they don't look manned. You know what I mean? Now, some of them accounts were like, oh no, they were manned, so it's hard to say. But
again, see, the other thing as well, if you have 300 people giving accounts, you can be sure that a few of them are bollocks. Like. So even though we're saying that we believe in this, or I'm saying I believe in that this definitely happened, I'm not saying that I believe every person who gave a statement was telling the truth.
It's happening at the minute too. Like, it's happening on, say, the UFO subreddit and stuff. There's a bunch of people, like, actively debunking some of the stuff that's coming out, and it's like, come on, like, we can't just believe everything that's out there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, again, you have to, based on what we're seeing in Congress and in these videos that would seem to be legitimate. If you look back at something like this, you could kind of tie the strings together and you go,
yeah,
hard to argue with this amount of people saying this. And also, you would definitely say, if the US had this technology, would they use it in basically a third world country where they'd get away with it? You go, yeah,
it's close to home as well.
I'm not saying, sorry, when I say the US, maybe that's the wrong thing, but people would be interested in doing something like that. It doesn't seem like anyone died from this.
No.
So potentially you could argue, actually, it's not a huge deal. It's the good outweighs the bad.
Yeah, it's very hard to know. All I do know is that I've been enjoying all this kind of UFO stuff. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's a really, and to be fair, look, one thing is that it kind of, it takes your mind off the actual madness of the world where it is right now, even politically. Yeah. And when I say that, I don't mean that I necessarily have a side I follow politically. Just there's mad polarization politically in the world nowadays. Wars going on. UAP are up there. The cost of living is crazy. It's a mad time to be alive, and on top of it, it's like probably aliens. Like it beggars belief.
Indeed, and it's a good time to have a podcast where we talk about aliens.
Sure is.
We'll leave it there, folks. Again, if you have anything you want to chime in on, drop us a line. monsterfuzzpodcast@gmail.com. I've been Rob.
I've been Eamon.
Monster Fuzz over and out.
Bye.
Nanu.